felt like a long time, to be honest. We've been building our drafts for weeks on end, and I can't lie, this is feeling like one of those exams back in the day in school where I've had months to prepare for something and I still don't know what I'm doing. But hopefully on this stream, I can come to my final game week 1 team. As I can't lie, I'm close. I am this close, and I'm going to need your guys' help to kind of reaffirm which players I'm going for. But we've done enough content here to know the players that realistically we do want to have in our teams. So we will be covering off all of those good things in this stream. And of course, the most important thing, answering your questions. If you have any questions that you want answering, make sure you do drop them in the chat and I'll be sure to answer them between now and around 5:30. I do apologise. I won't be going right up until the deadline. I do have to do a deadline live stream over on TikTok at 5:30. But I think in the next hour and a half, hour, 20 minutes, we can get through most things between now and then. So as always, if you look forward to the stream, please do consider smashing that like button. It just helps it get out there for maybe those lost FPL managers out there that are maybe thinking to themselves, oh, I might need to, get a little bit of help. Hopefully that like can just spread the word to all those glorious people. So I'm just making sure that is all set up. And as always, if you're not subscribed, please do consider smashing that subscribe button. So first and foremost, how's your teams looking? How are your teams looking right now? Are you set, or are you still panicking like myself, trying to squeeze in other players? I'm going to put my team up, show where I'm at, because I'm not set at all. And we need to try and get a little bit of understanding what we are doing. So we will get that clarified. JP, hi mate, Havertz or Solanke in the opening 2? For me, it's going to be Solanke, just because Havertz in game week 2 plays against Aston Villa, and I'm expecting that to be a closer affair than that of Spurs against Everton at home. Also, would you sell in game week 3 for Watkins out of Isak and Solanke? Most likely Solanke, because I do think Isak will remain the talisman in that Newcastle team, whereas there's still a little bit of uncertainty of that in terms of Solanke. But of course, he might hit the ground running and just be unbelievable in the early doors, and then when nobody wants to sell him, we're kind of dealing in uncertainties right now. But that is always the case in FPL. Game week 1 is always the toughest game week by far. I'm just making a note here. Sorry, it's just bloody admin everywhere. It's carnage. Wood or João Pedro or Muniz? The way I'd rank them right now is probably short-term Wood, Muniz, João Pedro. If you're looking longer-term, Muniz, Wood, João Pedro. The main problem there, of course, is that Brighton are in the market for forwards. They've signed Rutter from Leeds. Could that impact the minutes of João Pedro beyond game weeks 3 and 4? I think it could do so. What we got here? James, I've taken your lead on removing Nkunku from my team. What are your thoughts on replacing him with Doku? Seems like guaranteed minutes with City's injuries. Well, James, I may have Nkunku in my team. Okay, so basically, I was adamant of not having Nkunku in my team at all. I think the logic is there because the Man City game, I was planning on benching him. However, I know Chelsea are really hard to predict right now, but the problem with it is this. Man City have got no Rodri, no Kyle Walker, potentially no Foden or De Bruyne. And all of a sudden I'm looking at that fixture thinking this is an opportunity for Chelsea to get at Man City. Do I think they'll win? Probably not. Do I think they could score goals? Definitely. And the deals for João Felix and Osimhen haven't been confirmed yet. And if you're looking at a short-term punt at 6.5 million, I'm now starting to think Nkunku actually is an okay option because I have watched a lot of Chelsea's games and Nkunku has been one of the shining stars in that Chelsea team. So even though I think he isn't the best option, with those Man City players missing like Rodri, maybe he's now emerging as a good 6.5 million. And spoiler alert, he's in my team. I do apologise. Right, let me get the current team up. Okay, so this is how we're looking, but I have to caveat by saying I've got 1.5 million in the bank, and no, I am not sticking with that strategy. I wanted to have a little bit of play around on the stream with my team, of course, to see what we can actually do in terms of upgrading it. So which players on the screen right now are absolutely locked in? Well, if I'm looking to do an early wildcard, which I still am intending to do, and again, it's worth noting, I'm not sitting here saying I'm absolutely wildcarding in game week 4. The plan is to wildcard in game week 4, but if I get lucky and these players remain great options, then I can postpone the wildcard till later on and maybe use a few free transfers. I think a lot of people are obsessed right now in the game where, one, they don't think injuries ever happen. So everybody's talking about, oh, I'm going to wildcard in game week 8. I'm going to roll all 5 transfers. Like, have you played FPL before? Like, so much happens in those opening weeks. We get injuries, we get formation changes, we get new signings. Nothing's going to go to plan as it always does each and every season. So the dream of you rolling your transfers up to 5 times, 1 in 20, 1 in 50 of you may be able to, but not everybody is going to have that luxury to do so. So I think being really aggressive in the opening weeks is a good strategy. Now, players that are definitely locked in on your screens right now, I mean, Isak and Haaland have just been in. I am a little bit concerned about Man City in general with the absence of some of their key players, but Ipswich at home in game week 2, I am just so scared not to have Erling Haaland. So he is going to be in my team regardless. So Isak, Haaland locked in. Jota is by default in because I'm not going for Mo Salah. The rest of the team is up for grabs. No, I'm joking. I think Pedro Porro is in. I think Henderson is in. With the 1.5 million in the bank, of course, there are different areas that I can improve. One thing is that I could upgrade Pedro Porro to someone like a Trent Alexander-Arnold, use all of that money in the bank and have myself arguably the best defender in the game. It means I haven't got Pedro Porro, but let's be real. Pedro Porro versus Trent in the opening 2 fixtures, I think I prefer Trent Alexander-Arnold, so I can get to him with this strategy, which is something that I am planning to do so. So one thing is Pedro Porro to Trent and be done with the squad. My only concern is obviously the midfielders that I've selected. Now, I love Saka as a pick, Jota as my Liverpool coverage, Nkunku in there as my 6.5, and hopefully I will start against Man City now that they have their players absent like a Rodri. And Rodgers away against West Ham, I previously had Amad Diallo, but let's be real, with the Man United team right now, even if we get confirmation that he starts, with the players at their disposal right now, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 55, 60-minute substitution for Amad Diallo for someone like a Garnacho. And with that concern in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, Amad Diallo for a 1-game week punt, I might only get 60 minutes for it, whereas Rodgers has been in great form in pre-season. While Aston Villa have been a little bit ropey, it means that at least I have a definite starter in that Aston Villa team. So that's how it's looking. 1.5 million in the bank. So let's have a little play to see what we can do with this team. And of course, I will come into some of the chat while we're in this section right now. I can see more technique could be doing well. Samuel, can I literally just copy your team each week? Samuel, if you want to, you absolutely can. Calvin, mate, hope you're doing well. Who will start between Robertson and Shimikas in game week 1? I do not know the answer to that, unfortunately. I do apologise. I would love to sit here and confidently tell you, but I think both are risks in their own right. Damien, I'm so happy to have FPL back. I miss this a lot. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Techie, my midfielder is Gordon, Eze, Palmer, Nkunku, Jota, forward, Haaland, Isak. Do I downgrade anyone to get Solanke in? Realistically, it comes down to whether you are really bullish on Cole Palmer, because that's the obvious one in your team right now. You're going for double Chelsea with Palmer and Nkunku. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'd either commit to Cole Palmer and downgrade Nkunku, or probably the most logical move, downgrade Cole Palmer to someone like a Saka, or all the way down to an 8.5 like a Bruno Fernandes or an Odegaard, and then you can invest your funds to get Solanke if you want to. Now, my views on Solanke, it's a risk, let's be real. We don't know exactly what we are getting from him, but these 2 fixtures in isolation are fantastic. And I do have that fear that he's going to hit the ground running and he is just going to score a hatful of goals in those opening 2 games. That definitely can happen. But also with the 1.5 million saving that we can get going down to someone like a Chris Wood or a Muniz, we can then invest them funds elsewhere for the team. So take this as an example. If we were to get rid of Solanke, and again, I think Solanke is kind of brainwashed us a little bit. We've never seen him in a Spurs shirt. We're assuming he's going to hit the ground running, but with that 1.5 million saving going for someone like Chris Wood, who, let's be real, Chris Wood is very, very boring. However, Bournemouth, Southampton and Wolves, I would argue, are as good, if not better fixtures than that of Spurs' games. So then we look at the rest of the team. What you can see on your screens here has 3 million in the bank, which is massive. So a couple of things that we could do here. Let's just say Saka, Jota and Nkunku are locked in. I could do Smith Rowe all the way up to a Bruno Fernandes if I wanted to, and have a team like that. Keep the defence with Gabriel, Pedro Porro, Aina and Robertson to rotate in their great fixtures, with Johnson as a backup, Henderson in goal. I don't mind that at all with that team. That only takes Solanke out of the team for me to make that improvement. Another move that we could do, for example, is take Bruno Fernandes out. And what we could do is look to restore him to Smith Rowe, upgrade a Aina to a Trent, go really big at the back. And again, that doesn't feel as strong. I'd much rather have Bruno Fernandes in my team alongside that combination that I previously suggested. But Chris Wood does open up a lot of doors. It's how you determine Solanke. And because I'm planning on doing an early wildcard, I feel more inclined to get Solanke in my team with the prospect of him scoring in those opening few game weeks. Saliba and Gabriel or Vardial in for any of them. Personally, I prefer the Arsenal double up to Vardial right now because we have no guarantees that he is going to be that overlapping option. Gibbs White is a good choice, 100% Thomas, a player that I am massively overlooking right now. And to be honest with you, when I'm looking at my team, maybe the answer is something like a Rodgers to a Gibbs White, or maybe not having Smith Rowe for those opening games and reverting back to something like this. And playing a team like this, which could actually be quite beneficial. And this team still has 0.5 million in the bank where I could upgrade in particular areas. So I wouldn't even necessarily have to have Rodgers. I could upgrade that to Smith Rowe. My only concern about Smith Rowe is we don't actually know if he's locked in for minutes. He's spoken about how he's getting up for fitness. And of course, with Andres Pereira still in that team, we can see rotation with both Smith Rowe and Andres Pereira in that number 10 role. And that's my main concern with Smith Rowe. I don't know if we can actually fall back on him. We haven't actually seen him play. He could easily just pick up a knock and be back to square one once again. We don't really know what is going to happen with Smith Rowe. Whereas we know Gibbs White is locked in for minutes. We know Rodgers is going to be good for minutes in those opening few game weeks. So maybe the answer is to go something like this with benching Rodgers in the opening week. And to be honest with you, you'd be benching him in the opening few weeks and looking to have him around this sort of period here away against Leicester, which is obviously a temptation. So when we look at this team here, what are your thoughts? Is this a good balance? I feel like it's a decent team. Let's just lock it in a minute just to show you what it does look like. I think we're getting closer to where we need to be. Promise you're saying Smith Rowe or Garnacho. As of right now, I have to say Smith Rowe. 1 million cheaper, and we know Garnacho can be a little bit rotation risk. Also, the same can be said of that in Smith Rowe, but yeah, I feel like I need to see a little bit from Garnacho before investing in him. Gibbs White, Doku, or Nkunku. The way I'd rank those right now would be Nkunku 1, Gibbs White 2, and Doku 3. And it's just because of what's happened with Man City with some of these absentees, these big players missing for them. I do think Chelsea, while they won't win the game, could actually get some joy in that fixture. Vardial or Porro, for me, short term I love Porro, but of course if you're looking for more a long-term play, then it has to be Vardial, because I do think he is locked in. Would I start Rodgers or Muniz for the first game week? Personally, I would go for most likely Rodgers. I feel like there's a good feel-good factor right now at Man United with some of the signings that they've made. Does that mean they're going to do well? Probably not, but I would probably say probably Rodgers. I'm probably going to say Rodgers for that opening game. So I'm just double checking. I have got things locked in here. I do apologise. So guys, let me know your thoughts in here. What are you thinking regarding this sort of team? Again, it's got 0.5 million in the bank. What about Bruno? Really do like Bruno. I think he could be a fantastic option, especially playing as a false 9. Someone that definitely is coming into my thoughts. It's just being able to squeeze him into this team. For example, if we were looking to get him into this particular team, I think we would either have to do one or two things. We would have to downgrade Gibbs White to a Harry Winks, for example, which would give us 2.5 million. We would then have to downgrade Solanke to Chris Wood. And then we would have to look to upgrade Rodgers to Bruno Fernandes. And the beneficial part of this is that we can still have Rodgers in our team as a backup option. And that's quite an interesting one that I'm going to put in a poll right now. Which do you prefer? Let me know in the poll on this one, guys, because this might help out a lot of people who are in a similar deliberation. So we're going to say MGW is going to be Morgan Gibbs White, just for a heads up, and Solanke. Or do you prefer Bruno plus Wood? Christ, to put it all in capitals. Plus Wood. Just for context, that's how the team would look if Bruno and Wood were coming into this team. Bruno obviously is a great option. You can see here with the fixtures. Fulham at home. Brighton away, I don't think it's a terrible fixture at all. And then Liverpool at home, which we know he could do well in. And then he could easily be a long-term hold if you needed him longer term. You know he's going to be a talisman in that side. So let me know your thoughts. Which combination do you prefer? Do you prefer Morgan Gibbs-White and Solanke? Or do you prefer Bruno Fernandes and Chris Wood? Get voting in that poll. And again, if you're not already, guys, make sure you do smash the subscribe button. It is always massively... Sorry, I was just double checking what was going on there. Apologies. Yeah, as I said, guys, always massively appreciate it. I had this crazy goal of hitting 17k before the game week 1 deadline. We are 2 hours away from the deadline. We're not going to hit it. But if we could hit 16.5, that would be absolutely sick. I think we're still quite away from that. But if we could get close to that, that would be awesome as well. So if you're not already, please do consider smashing that subscribe button. Is always massively appreciated. But let me know your thoughts. Morgan Gibbs-White plus Solanke or Bruno Fernandes and Chris Wood. I'm very interested to see. But this is where we're landing right now as we speak for an early wild card. Gordon or Bruno Gomes? Gordon, if you can afford it, definitely. Just be concerned that Gordon hasn't really played tons of minutes in pre-season, so we might see an early substitution for someone like a Harvey Barnes who has proved himself on that left-hand side. And again, it's worth noting, someone like a Jacob Murphy isn't really being spoken about right now. If you want to piece that Newcastle attack alongside Alexander Isak and you can't afford a Gordon, maybe Jacob Murphy is the answer to that. What do I think about Kobe Mainoo at 5.5? No, I wouldn't touch that. Watkins and Rodgers or Nkunku and Solanke? I prefer Nkunku and Solanke in your team, Jim. Eze plus 0.5 million in the bank or Jota? Personally, I prefer Jota because the Eze situation is a little bit unclear right now. We don't really know if there is going to be a big money signing for him in the next few days or weeks. And that is going to probably diminish him as an FPL option because right now he's the talisman in this Crystal Palace team. He might actually become a bit more of a cog in the machine if he was to go for Man City, for example. And we know what Pep does to flair players sometimes. Kind of makes him a little bit boring, and that is Eze's real strength. So I really hope he doesn't do that to them if that is the case. Reza G. Is Dan Burn a good cheap starter as I have Salah, Isak, Saka, Haaland all in the same team? Dan Burn's absolutely fine, but there is another bid on the cards for Mark Gahey. And if that does happen, Dan Burn's minutes become very, very questionable. He either completely comes out of the team or he moves to left back. And then, of course, that is a concern for someone like a Lewis Hall. That's the reason why Lewis Hall currently isn't in my team. Just because I'm a little bit concerned that if that Gahey transfer does happen, I think they're going to force him straight into the team. And then that could mean problems for Lewis Hall if he doesn't establish himself as the starting left back. He should, because he's a million times better than that of Dan Burn. But we're not actually having that clarification right now. So yeah, guys, please let me know on the stream what your thoughts are on the team on the screens. I'll be super interested to know. Sam was saying, I'm panicking. Nkunku or Luis Diaz / Jota. I think if you can forward it, I do prefer Diogo Jota because I think Jota and Nkunku's minutes are going to be very, very similar. I think both are minutes risks at times. So I do prefer maybe going for someone like a Jota in that Liverpool team. What else have we got in here, guys? And let me quickly put up the fixture ticket as well here. So this is the really interesting thing right now in terms of how far are we looking in terms of our horizon. So right now I'm looking personally at an earlier wildcard because it means that I can go with that Mo Salah for the first weeks and then I can look to go on him in a wildcard 4. It means that I can target those Spurs fixtures that are here. Because we have Leicester, we have Everton. Wouldn't be surprised if Spurs scored a combined 6 goals in those games, to be honest with you. And I know a lot of people who are wildcarding later are completely avoiding Spurs, and I think that could be a problem. I'm also seeing a lot of people actually avoiding Arsenal. Now, I'm a little bit confused right now because Arsenal at home against Wolves, I think, is a fantastic fixture. Arsenal away against Villa, I know Villa were great last season, but I still expect Arsenal to win that game. And then they got Brighton at home, which is going to be a new manager into the league, new team, maybe a naive manager. But I think Arsenal could comfortably win that game as well. And of course, after that, Spurs and Man City, not ideal. And that's why wildcarding in game week 4 is quite ideal, because what you can do is completely move away from the Arsenal assets if you want to, once hopefully you capitalised on those opening 3 game weeks. I don't really feel that comfortable not having Arsenal in my team. And I know a lot of people are investing in the likes of Liverpool. They're great. There's no doubt about it. Liverpool are going to be good this season under Arne Slot. But do we know that for certain in the opening few game weeks? I don't really know the answer to that. So while they've looked good in pre-season, the Premier League is a very, very different beast. And away against Ipswich isn't going to be easy, I don't think. I think they will win that game. Will they win it by a couple of goals? Most likely. But could they concede the old goal? I think that's also conceivable as well. So be interested to know your thoughts, guys, in terms of your perception on the other players. Milo HD, Bruno Fernandes and Quansah, Eze and Gabriel. Really, really close between the two. I'm probably going to say Bruno Fernandes and Quansah, to be honest. Winks, I don't mind Harry Winks as part of a structure where you're really trying to invest money in the rest of your starting 11. So, for example, what we could do here is downgrade Harry Winks. The problem with that strategy is you need to make sure that your 4 midfielders are very, very strong. So what you could do here, for example, is you could be crazy brave and go something like this. And you could roll out a team like that. Winks on the bench. Robinson basically is going to be your only sub that you can rely on. But let's be real. Injuries happen all the time in FPL. But if you were to roll this team out, let's put it in the planner. So let's say we go with this team. Of course, if there's an injury, we're in trouble. But coming into game week 2, nobody in that starting 11 needs to be replaced apart from Aina, most likely. So your team looks like that. Coming into game week 3, okay, not great that we got double Liverpool against Man United, but those that are wildcard and later on in the season will definitely have Trent and they'll have Mo Salah. So everybody's going to be competing with that fixture. The not so good thing, of course, is having Spurs against Newcastle, which we both own. So something that you easily could do is bring in Aina for Pedro Porro if you're concerned. The rest of the team looks pretty handy. And then if you get to this stage and you think to yourself, well, all the players I've selected, I've hit the ground running, they're fantastic. You could come into game week 4 with 3 free transfers available to you. You've got double Liverpool with Diaz and Jota. While it might not be as good as Mo Salah, it's still decent. You've got the front 3 in there. But then if you needed to, maybe we could look to make some changes. I'm not going to do it because I can't bother to predict the future. So much is going to happen between now and game week 4. But you could easily use those 3 transfers. Maybe take Gabriel out of this team, free up some funds, get that to a Trent if you need to, or downgrade Solanke to a Watkins or upgrade him. Lots of different variations, and I'll be super interested to know what people think about this team here. Maybe going all out on Liverpool, double attack with Diaz and Jota. My only concern is Darwin and Gakpo are going to come into this team at some point. Are they going to eat away minutes on both of those players? And then all of a sudden you've got 2 Liverpool players who are getting rotated on the 60th minute. That isn't so ideal. Saka or Son if you don't have Solanke. If you don't have Solanke, it all comes down to your preference. I personally prefer Saka, but I know a lot of people think Son is much more of an explosive asset. And with those opening 2 fixtures, he could do fantastic. The thing that I will say is we haven't seen Son play with Solanke, so we don't actually know what that combination is going to be like. That is the only concern there. Is it bad having only one premium defender? No, I don't think so at all. You're not stuck on anything this season. There are so many different variations that you can do with your teams. This one here, for example, you wouldn't even put Pedro Porro as an absolute premium. He probably is closer to that bracket than not, but I haven't got a Trent in here or 2 6 million defenders. So I think you could fill your team with some nice players around the 5 to 5.5, definitely. Should I go for Diaz over Jota? I think it's incredibly close between the two. I don't really think there is a right answer here. I think we just take the punt. We've got no information to go off. And that's why I think it's really important to not rule out an early wildcard in the opening few game weeks. If we were to see a situation, for example, with this team where Darwin gets preference over Diaz, Cole Palmer takes all the minutes away from Nkunku, and Spurs are terrible defensively, then I might have to actually just say to myself, got to make a wild card here and get it done early. Game week 1, you're going off zero information. And because of that, I think you just basically accept that anything goes in the opening few game weeks. And if you need to change things up, you can in those opening weeks. I think that's the way I always look at FPL. In game week 1, it is the most difficult game week by far. Loads of people asking, is this going to be my final team? No. Look, I am not locked in on my team at all. I can't lie. I've had so long to prepare for it and I thought I'll be locked in. So if I was to say to you right now, I am going to put my team on the screen right now, it would look something like this. I probably would look at upgrading that to Rodgers just to give myself that little bit of security. I'm quite a boring manager. And of course, that would free up 0.5 million. I would go for Diogo Jota in that situation as opposed to Luis Diaz, but I do think, as I mentioned, both are very good. But again, this is how we're getting really close to where I want to be. We're very, very close. Really, I am looking at possibly a Jacob Murphy as an option at 5.5, which would give me 1.5 million to invest elsewhere in my squad. And as I mentioned, something that I am considering maybe is doing this. And looking something like that going into game week 1. This is roughly what I'm looking at. Why do they keep advertising FPL Challenge? No one's going to play it, for God's sakes. So I think I'm going to be close to this in game week 1. I don't have Pedro Porro, so I'm not overly attacking the Spurs fixtures, but I have Solanke, which is an ideal situation. And do I absolutely love Spurs defensively? The answer is no, I can't lie. I've got my Arsenal coverage for the opening few weeks. I've got my Liverpool coverage in Jota and in Trent Alexander-Arnold. We've got Nkunku. We've got Jacob Murphy for that opening game week. Now, what's the problem with this team? Well, firstly, have I got any money in the bank? Okay, no money in the bank is worth noting. So let's take a look at how this team looks over the coming game weeks. And guys, let me know. Let me end this poll a minute, because I would love for you guys to be savage or not. I'm just going to literally put the most open-ended question ever. Do you, no, like the most like subjective, do you like this team? And don't hurt my feelings. Do you like this team, guys? Let me know. So let's go into this planner a minute to get a bit of an understanding. So team picks itself for game week 1, absolutely. And again, I don't have Pedro Porro, but I don't know if you guys can relate to this. Sometimes when I build FPL teams, I kind of forget that I can take certain players out. So for example, Pedro Porro has been in every single one of my drafts that I've literally for the last 2 weeks not thought about taking him out. And now I've taken him out, I think to myself, wow, team actually is pretty strong now. But you almost get quite emotionally attached to players and you don't actually even think about them possibly ever coming out your team. And only once you do it, you start to open up other possibilities for the rest of your side. And the problem with Trent as well, and why I'm a little bit scared not to go there, is Ipswich away. I'm saying here right now that Ipswich could do okay against Liverpool, but what if they don't? What if they get absolutely battered and Trent looks like the next best thing? And then they're coming into Brentford at home and I don't have a piece of Trent in that game. The only thing I will say is, we need to remember, of course, Ivan Toney is staying at Brentford by the sounds of things, which means that's going to be a tricky game for Liverpool. But that's how we could look coming into this. Going into game week 2, how would my team look? Well, I mean, Robinson, if I'm brave enough, could come in for Gabriel if I really thought to myself Aston Villa would score against Arsenal. But I probably wouldn't. I'd probably back the Arsenal defence and I probably would do Aina out for Southampton. And my team will look something like this. The main concern with this team, of course, is that Jacob Murphy, I'm relying on him for another start in this game. When we take a look at the fixtures that I don't have any ownership in, that I might be a little bit scared. Crystal Palace at home against West Ham. The only player that I'm scared of in that is going to be Eze. But I have no guarantees that he's actually going to be starting for Palace because he might get a move. Then, of course, with Fulham, we have got no investment in Fulham in terms of attacking. So I could just resolve my issues here and do Smith Rowe from the start. But again, in game week 1 isn't ideal. So Jacob Murphy could come in. When we come into game week 3, again, Trent away against Man United. Not ideal, but not the worst. Aina at home against Wolves. So with the rest of my team here, I probably would look at doing Rodgers in for Jacob Murphy. And the team would probably look something like this. I'd have to play Trent, of course. But I'm pretty content with that team. Then we come in, worth noting, Johnson at home against Fulham. If he's established himself as a starter, if Ipswich are going to stay in this Premier League, they have to win their home games. So Johnson could emerge as a brilliant option. Then we come into game week 4. And this is where it basically would be make or break with this team. But what I do like about it is I could easily keep this team if I wanted to and just make a few transfers. So I'd have Haaland at home against Brentford, whereas other managers that are not going without him now have to avoid Ipswich at home and Brentford at home. I think you're not going to get lucky twice in that situation without Erling Haaland. We've got our Arsenal assets away against Spurs, but what's to say this isn't the opportunity for me to move away from someone like a Gabriel? So in game week 4, if I suddenly decide wildcard isn't an option, we take Gabriel out and we suddenly put in Vardial at 6 million, praying he doesn't get a massive price hike. And our team could look something like this going into game week 4 with just one transfer. And again, we could make another move if we need to, but I'm not going to literally predict the future because so much can happen in those game weeks. So right now, if you said to me right now the deadline is going to happen in 2 seconds, I probably would lock in this team and take a punt on Jacob Murphy. He's played well. He's been very, very good in pre-season. He's been very good at the back end of last season. And I feel like at home, my only concern about Anthony Gordon is that he's played very little in pre-season. Could he just come into this Newcastle team, maybe play 60 and then come off for Harvey Barnes? And then all of a sudden, I'm looking at the fixtures thinking to myself, well, I've got 60 minutes of Anthony Gordon. He's now away against Bournemouth, which is fine, but his record away from home wasn't great. And then Spurs at home, which he definitely could do well in. Let's put it out there, but it's not the best fixture in the world. So I might only get one game of Gordon at 7.5 million. So I'm looking pretty content with this team right now. Let me know your thoughts. I've put a poll somewhere in here. Do you like the team? Yes or no? Be quite interested to see what changes you would make. Where is Eze? I think he's a phenomenal option. I'm just a little bit scared about a potential transfer that could happen in the coming days. Do I think it will definitely happen? I don't know the answer to that, but I do think there is a possibility of it, and that is my main concern right now, is the possibility of it happening. And I'm a little bit scared of that. It's worth noting. Also, in terms of rotation for defenders, am I actually getting the full value from it? That's what I need to decide. The reason why I'm looking away from Lewis Hall is if I didn't want to have a wildcard in game week 4, I don't love having Lewis Hall long term, especially if they sign someone like a Mark Gahey. He's great for the opening game week, but after that, I don't love it. So that's why I'm currently leaning towards Aina, who's a bit more of a safer option, really good fixtures, and I think I'm pretty content with him as my pick. So again, let me know your thoughts. I've got no Pedro Porro, which is a concern because he's been in basically all of my drafts and I absolutely love him. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty content with this team right now. Murphy is the big punt, but I think I've seen enough in pre-season and enough off the back of last season to think that his game times could be pretty solid in those opening game weeks. But let me know your thoughts, guys. I'll be super interested to know who is missing in this team. Just checking out to see if I've updated on here. Apologies. Let's need a sip of this. And what I do love as well, guys, about this is I'm not one of those FPL managers that is completely committed to my laurels. So I'm not going to sit here and say to you, I have to do this. Basically, the way I look at it is, let's say I get it wrong with Eze and he is just absolutely hit the ground running. Like, I'm just going to grin and bear it. I'm just going to accept Eze is a baller. He's probably going to smash it up in these game weeks. But then Chelsea away, it's not amazing in game week 3. So If we can get lucky over this period, happy days. And then we can reassess in game week 4 whether he is truly going to be an option. What could I do with this team to change it up? The big change for me, the only real change I can make in this team, and did I ever actually play Rodgers in that setup? Sorry. Did Rodgers ever come into the team? Because we need to actually assess if he... Okay, he comes in for Leicester away in game week 3, which is absolutely fine. Worst case scenario, Aina comes in for his home game against Wolves, and it looks something like that, which isn't the worst, is it really? It's not too bad. So we're hopefully banking on Rodgers basically to do something there. Fingers crossed anyway. So I love Rodgers. I love all that. Johnson could be Barker. We'll have to decide on that one. But I'm pretty content with the team. I think it's looking good. I feel more confident having Trent at 7, knowing I can come down to Pedro Porro. My concern is that if I go for Pedro Porro, it's good because it frees up 1.5 million. But I look at my team right now and think to myself, who is it that I want? Well, I'm not going to upgrade any of my forwards. I'm not going to upgrade any more of my defenders because I've spoken about that. So really it comes down to, do I want to upgrade one of my midfielders? So I could upgrade Nkunku to, I can't even get to Bruno Fernandes, it's worth noting. So it'll be mainly upgrading Rodgers to a 6.5 or Murphy to a 7. So it'll basically be, this will be an interesting deliberation. Sorry, I'm all over the shop right now. What would you rather here? What would you rather? Question mark. What would you rather? Porro plus Eze, or would you prefer Trent plus Murphy? And this is going to be for about 3 game weeks. Which would you prefer? Pedro Porro and Eze, or Trent and Jacob Murphy? Let me know your thoughts. That one's quite close. I feel like on the face of it, Porro and Eze makes a lot of sense. But I'm just a little bit concerned about Eze moving, that is all. And my other concern about it is I'm scared that if Trent hits the ground running, it is very difficult to get to him because there's no way I'm making a defensive transfer. So if I don't go Trent now, I don't go Trent at all until game week 4. And that is one of my major concerns without going for Trent is, do I want to be that brave and avoid him? That is my main concern right now. So for those asking, this is how my team is currently looking. Things can change, of course. And I'm just looking on Twitter right now to see if there's any sort of transfer updates, because that, of course, can change things. But I'm not seeing anything right now. So we're just going to stick with what we got as we speak. And just kind of stick with it. Yeah, I was hoping maybe something would come out. Maybe something like, oh, you know, what's it called? Eze's gone. That would help the situation. But I can see 55% of people are saying Porro and Eze. The rest are saying Trent and Jacob Murphy, which I definitely understand. Start Muniz or Ahmad. My thing to you is, if you've got Ahmad, you have to start him. Like, why do you own him otherwise at home against Fulham? But do note, we could get some early Man United team news before the deadline, which will really dictate whether you start Ahmad Diallo or not in your teams. Nkunku or Gibbs White? I prefer Nkunku right now, especially with Rodri being absent in that Man City team. I really do think that enhances the attacking potential of Chelsea as a whole. We know deep down that Man City are not the same team without Rodri in it. And also we have to remember, no Alvarez, no Oscar Bob. This is going to be a weak Man City team. They'll still beat Chelsea, but it's going to be a weaker Man City team. Is Mbeumo being looked? 100%. I think we just don't really know whether there's going to be penalties or not. That's the big thing right now. It's a good point as well. People are saying maybe Trent and Smith Rowe as the options, which is a really good point. Maybe Smith Rowe is the option in this team. So, for example, it doesn't have to be Jacob Murphy. It could be Smith Rowe coming in. And then we probably would have to start Rodgers in this game week against West Ham, which isn't ideal, but it's not the worst thing in the world. So the team could look something like this, and it means then we got Smith Rowe for those next few game weeks with really favourable games. Maybe that's the direction to go in. So we got Rodgers in game week 1 away against West Ham, not ideal, but not the worst. Smith Rowe coming in there, and Robinson coming in for that one. Got Trent in for that brilliant fixture against Brentford at home, which hopefully Ivan Toney gets sold by them, but we can't guarantee it. Captaincy obviously on Haaland. Coming into game week 3, Henderson away against Chelsea is what it is. They're going to concede, but it is what it is, as they say. And then I think the team picks itself. You could even argue maybe bringing in Rodgers for... Probably not Rodgers. But the thing about Rodgers is then in game week 4, if we need him, he's there, available. And I think he's just a safer pick for minutes. So maybe Smith Rowe's the route to go for. Who scores more points, Jacob Murphy or Rodgers? That's the big question, really. Where's Ahmad went? I would need to see Ahmad definitely starting to have confidence in going there. My only concern is if I do avoid a wildcard in game week 4, then Amad Diallo suddenly becomes a bit of a minutes risk in those opening game weeks, because we know eventually we're going to see Garnacho get some minutes on that right-hand side. Saliba or Gabriel? Right now, I prefer Gabriel. I have been on the logic for a long time, and I might be wrong, that Arteta has brought in Calaflori to match Pep as what he's done with Vardy. So I expect Calaflori to come in at left back and then have just a really big defence similar to that of City with a ball playing left back. But if you want guaranteed minutes and you want no concerns, you want to sleep well at night, then Saliba probably is the answer. OP Talent, thank you so much for Super Chat, mate. I know you've done some yesterday or day before as well, so that is really kind of you. Hall and Solanke or Gabriel and Muniz. Okay, so this is the perfect example here of Hall, very, very short term, because when we take a look at the fixtures here, you can see, where are we at? Newcastle. So Southampton's good, Bournemouth's good, Tottenham not ideal, Wolves away and Fulham away, we have no idea, but I don't think they're great fixtures. And of course, if they do sign Mark Gahey, they up the price and they actually do lock it in, I think then there's competition from Dan Burn. I still think Lewis Hall will start, but I would be a little bit concerned. So then we take a look at it as well. Solanke, brilliant. Where are we at? They're not even on the page. Brilliant for the short term, not ideal for the long term unless he really hits the ground running. Whereas with Gabriel, you get him for the first 3, which is great. Not good for 4 and 5. And Muniz long term is amazing in your teams. So it's very difficult. I think short term, 100% Hall and Solanke. But if you're looking longer term, I think Gabriel Muniz is the route you should go for. So I apologise a little bit of not a bit of a cop-out answer there. But I think if you're looking 3 game weeks, it's Hall and Solanke. If you're looking longer term, it's Gabriel Muniz. Why is no one considering Watkins? The only reason being right now is they play very little in pre-season, if anything. Isak at 8.5. People are going for Haaland. Very difficult then to have Watkins as well. Hall or Burn, for me, is Lewis Hall. I think he will be the starting left back. Do you think Matswari over Aina will be a good shout for the same price? He definitely could be. I don't know exactly what he's going to be like, and I don't love going for people who are complete uncertainties to the league. So how would this look in my team here? Let's have a look. It could be the punt of the century, let's be real. So if he was to come in, it would look something like this. I mean, it looks cool. Maswari in, just a sick name in general. Game week 2, away against Brighton. Let's be real. I think we probably would be bringing in Robinson for Maswari in that game. Smith Rowe will be coming in for Rodgers. Then in game week 3, you're not playing Matswari at home against Liverpool. So he's very much a 1 game week punt. And I think because of that reasoning, I just can't really go there. So let's take him out of the team before we can confuse people. But I am currently on Aina. Just currently. And again, guys, if you are watching this and you're enjoying it, please do consider smashing that subscribe button. As I mentioned, we were going for this crazy target of hitting 17k before the deadline. There's no world where we're going to hit it, but if we can get close, maybe 16.5, 16.6, that would be awesome. So if you're enjoying it, please do consider dropping a like. It is always massively appreciated, and of course subscribing is great. I'm just checking Twitter right now to see if there's any updates on anything. I can't see anything, so we're going to stick with how we're looking right now with the team. But I'm pretty content. With the team. I think Solanke over the next two could do really well. I like it. I do like it. Feels like my child I'm looking at, that I've given birth to. Why Aina, though, Huck is saying, well, the numbers for Forest under Nuno Espirito Santo were very good. I think Aina is expected to start, and the fixtures are pretty ideal. These three here are great. So we can use them in game week 1. We can use them in game week 3. Mixed after that. But I think he's just a really safe bet at 4.5. So I really do like him as an option. The other 4.5s, Lewis Hall. Imagine this is Lewis Hall, by the way, because we're just looking at the fixtures. Great for game week 1. Okay for game week 2. Bit mixed. And my only concern, as I said, they are really going in on Mark Gahey. So if they do sign Mark Gahey, sorry, I got bloody eyes hurting. I've done too much this week. If Mark Gahey gets signed, then there's direct competition with Dan Burn at left back, somebody we know Eddie Howe loves. If it's me, I'm playing Lewis Hall every day of the week and I'm sending Dan Burn down to the Championship, but I'm not the manager. And we do know Eddie Howe has soft spots for Dan Burn, probably just because he's a giant and he wins most headers, and he probably does need that in certain fixtures. So that's why I'm currently leaning towards a combination of Aina and Robinson. And I just love Robinson because he has such a great offering of attacking potential and really good fixtures. The one that I haven't spoken about, and let's get the defenders up on screen right now. So I should have done a watch list in advance. I do apologise, guys, but some of us have a 9-to-5 job, and I unfortunately was working today. I say that, it's not even 5 o'clock and I'm already home. I apologise. Okay. The ones that I like at 4.5, I'm just going to flag them a minute for you, and then we can come to some sort of conclusion on them. So you can go Van de Ven if you want to go there. I don't mind that one. Aina, as we've spoken about, and also Murillo if you want to go there. But again, don't know if I love it. Livramento is basically the same as Lewis Hall. He could be phenomenal, but we also don't know whether he could lose his place if Trippier remains at Newcastle. Matswari, if you want to be a crazy lunatic, you can go there. But when are you really playing him? This 100%, if he does start. Don't love that, don't love that. That's okay, that's not good, that's not good, that's not good. I always say this in FPL. You don't have to be the first person to have a player. Matswari's ownership right now, what the... Okay, I was expecting that to be like 0. 2.2%, let's be real, is because it's Man United. But if he does well, that's not going to hurt you. You don't have to be the first one to own Matswari. That's a perfect example of that sort of player. But bloody hell, 2.2%. What are people doing? Right. Another phenomenal option. Of course not. Of course we're not having Johnny Evans in our teams. Rico Lewis, I see a lot of love. Don't go there. He will be a rotation risk before you know it. Robinson, one of my favourites. 8.7 is low as well. I'm very surprised at that. I would avoid Crystal Palace defensively at 4.5. It's Munoz or nobody in my eyes. Chelsea, you're a lunatic if you go there. Brighton, I think it is Barco or nobody. Brentford, do not touch. Bournemouth, do not touch. Aston Villa, they do have their purpose. You can play him in this fixture. It's absolutely fine. Not good, good. And I'm starting to look at that and think, maybe. Just maybe. Because Aina, what did he do last season? I mean, 20 starts and an expected goal involvement of 1.35. So let's be real. This ain't a guy who's going to be bombing up the line, getting assists 24/7. So it's not ideal. So maybe Konsa, who's definitely going to start, coming in, the big dog. Away against West Ham, not ideal, is worth noting at all. But we look at the planner here. We have him for West Ham away. We then bring in Robinson for game week 2. And we bring in Smith Rowe for our main man, Rodgers. Lock that bad boy in. Game week 3. I mean, he could definitely come in if we need him. But it's when do we need him in this one? Probably not. And then in game week 4, he can easily come in if we're concerned about certain players here. So, for example, even if Spurs were flying, bring the big dog in for Everton at home. Rodgers can come in if we need him. Konsa, I don't mind either. Do not mind Konsa either. He's just going to sit there for now. He's just going to sit there. Doku, yes, I expect more game time from him. Don't love it though. Barnes could definitely steal minutes away from Gordon. And that's why I'm a little bit off put by Gordon. I just think there is a possibility that maybe he isn't fully up to speed because remember, he hasn't played much in pre-season. So we could see a situation where maybe he ends up losing out on some minutes. And that's my only problem. That is my main concern there. And again, guys, we have just under 500 viewing this. If you're enjoying it, please do drop a like. 88 right now. If we can get 100, that will be one of the best streams I've had in a long old time. So that'll be much appreciated. And again, if you're not subscribed, what are you playing at? Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We're aiming for 17k. It ain't happening, but we could get close. If we get 16.6, 16.7, it's a good day at the office. So please do drop a like if you're enjoying it. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to be a selfless man. I'm going to ignore my team and I'm going to answer your questions. I'm going to fly through these because that's what the audience wants. So, no, I'm joking. Would you recommend using your team week by week? Also, is this your final game week 1 team or is it changing? Louis, I would recommend going with your own team. That is kind of the fun of it. But if you want to follow my team, you can. But it's totally up to you, my friend. Trent and Henderson or Raya and Vardial? Trent and Henderson, Raya or Vardial? I prefer Trent and Henderson myself. Zane, is Pedro Porro much better than Munoz? Could downgrade to no bench defenders. Who do I prefer? I prefer Pedro Porro, but Muniz longer term is a safer bet in your team. Bruno and Smith Rowe or Garnacho and Eze? What's the better combination? Bruno and Smith Rowe. Garnacho, no guarantees of starts because of his lack of fitness. Eze may move. Bruno and Smith Rowe, I think, are much safer bets. Is everyone ditching Barco now then? Don't think loads are. I think he's definitely good for the short term and he could even come into my team. But I think long term, we could see issues. That is the only problem right now. Henderson to Sells replace the Forest defender. It's a really good shout. I just have no guarantees that Sells actually does start for Forest. If there's a Forest fan out there and you have a bit more information than me, please do let me know. It'd be really good to know whether Sells is actually the starting goalkeeper, but I have no clarification right now. That's why I was leaning towards Aina. Currently got Konsa, could be Aina. Thoughts on Lewis Hall? Love him short term, but just remember long term we could see some issues. Fernandez plus Rodgers or Eze plus Nkunku? Ooh. Oh, that is incredibly close. I'm going to say Eze and Nkunku. I think Eze and Nkunku, but it's so close. Do I expect Amad Diallo to start? Well, thankfully, Liam, I think we might get news of that before the deadline. If you've been playing FPL over the last few seasons, you will know that team leaks have just been all over the place, and we probably are going to get something once again this game week with Man United, so probably do keep an eye out for it. How many expected minutes for Solanke would you think? I think he's going to get some decent minutes. But again, it's not a player that's absolutely locked in my team. And the reason why I am not fully locked in on Solanke is because it's the amount of options he opens if we downgrade. So if we were to go away from him, we are going to be looking at Chris Wood. So then it frees up 1.5 million to improve this team. And we can definitely improve it. We could do Smith Rowe to Eze. And again, guys, like, what are your thoughts on Eze? Because I'd rather him just lock in a contract here and just be done with it, because he'd be in my team. Will you own Eze in game week 1? Question mark. Yes, no. People saying Barnes, don't go there. That is such a risk with minutes. But guys, let me know. Is Eze going to be in your team? I'll be super interested to know, because this is the one that's really dividing opinion for me right now. I would love to have him in my team, but I also don't know whether I can actually guarantee if he is going to get a move or not. So I would be interested to know. Is Eze just worth putting in? Am I just going to default back to the simpler times? Am I just going to default to simpler times? Just checking out to see if there's any Twitter news, guys. I can't see much. But it's always handy to have a little look to see if there's any transfer news. I can't see much. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this team, guys? What are your thoughts on this team? Could be a little bit different. I'm just scared Solanke goes big. I think Leicester are going to be crap. Let me just put it back to here a minute. Obviously, the other issue with this team is I'm rotating Rodgers and Smith Rowe. So we're of the assumption that they're both going to be good options. It could very easily, like that, become an issue. That's my main concern as well. Quansah, I think he's good, but he ain't going to cover Trent at all. And I look at the fixtures for Liverpool in those first 3. I mean, that's not a guaranteed clean sheet against Brentford. If they keep Tony, that is a really tricky fixture then. Ipswich away, who knows? Who knows? Arne Slot's first game, Ipswich's first game in the Premier League for donkey's years. I would imagine that's going to be a great atmosphere. And then United away, I wouldn't back a clean sheet. I think they have all of the tools available. 4 and 5 looks great. But can I sit here right now and say to you that Quansah is guaranteed to be the starter come game week 4? I think the answer is probably no. I can't guarantee that. So that's why I look at the fixture and think Quansah could be good. But I also just think I don't love it. Don't love it. Would Martinelli be a good differential? Was he too risky? So Martinelli's a perfect example of, I think people are going to flock to him early doors. I really do believe that. And I would love to sit here and say to you that Martinelli has guaranteed minutes. If Trossard got an injury, I'd be on Martinelli, because I've been hot on him since the game launched at 7 million. And at 7 million, it just opens up so many doors for teams. You can have Solanke and Haaland. Sorry, has Solanke, Haaland, Isak. No problems whatsoever. You can keep this defence. You can have Martinelli. You can have all of these boys. But you can upgrade, for example, I mean, let's just do this. That to Bruno. I mean, I would love to go Martinelli. I would love to go Martinelli. I think it'd be so good. Hall versus Quansah. Benny, please don't spam the chat, mate. It is sometimes a bit of a pain for people. Who do I prefer? I prefer top work. I believe that would be a more technique, getting rid of those. Look, Quansah long term, Lewis Hall short term. That is the way I look at it right now. Hall for game week 1, 100% though. But yeah, guys, what are your thoughts on that? Martinelli in at 7 million. I would love it. Only last season he had 15 goals, 9 assists. I'm not going to go there. Let's be real. I'm not going to go there. It's too risky. But, God, it's tempting. it opens up so many more avenues for points in this team. We can keep the big three. We can go for the big dogs elsewhere. If we were to make those moves, Saka, Smith Rowe, guys. I have to put a poll in here a minute. Okay, because this is the same price for these two. What would you rather? Sarah saying he doesn't like it. That's fair. Which would you prefer, legends? I'll be super interested to know this. Don't be saying it and thinking. If you vote on this, you have to actually do it yourself. So, Saka plus Emile Smith Rowe, and just typing it out just gets me excited. Martinelli plus Bruno. Let me put that in there. Now look, let's be real, guys. I ain't doing it. But what would you prefer? Saka and Smith Rowe, or Martinelli and Bruno Fernandes? What do you prefer? Like, I'm not doing it, but would I be shocked if in the opening few game weeks, with Declan Rice being a box-to-box midfielder and Partey being the DM, they are able to open up Martinelli like they had in the previous season? I can see it happening, you know. I can absolutely see it happening. Martinelli against that high defence against Aston Villa. Whew. Chances. Jota or Gordon? I'm just going to say Jota. I previously have been all on Gordon, but I'm just a little bit concerned he isn't fully match fit and might get rotated with Harvey Barnes after like 70 minutes. But let's be real, that could easily happen to Jota as well in those opening weeks. So we also do need to caveat it with that. Like, we have no guarantees. So yeah, it's difficult. I would love Martinelli so much. Just checking to see if there's anything. So, breaking news, Crystal Palace are considering a fourth Newcastle offer for Mark Gahey, which Sky Sports understands is to be rejected. So, we have no idea really if that is actually going to lock in, do we? But, I mean, if it does happen, then there's going to be problems, isn't there, for Lewis Hall, the impact that's going to have on the Newcastle defence. It will enhance it. But which one is the one we truly want? You guys have clearly seen enough. Saka and Smith Rowe, you guys are boring. You've gone for that one. No, I'm joking. Of course, that is the safer option. But come back to this. Come back to it. I'm telling you, Martinelli will be an option. Why am I so bullish on Nkunku? Okay, yeah, so I've done a U-turn big time on Nkunku because previously I was the jury was out on Nkunku, I can't lie, early doors. The only thing I will say about Nkunku is he's been fantastic in pre-season, and we're obviously going off what we've seen, and I think, personally, Nkunku is elite. I think he's top bracket player. He's an elite finisher. When you watch him in pre-season, he's been very, very good. He's been very influential, and I don't think someone like Maresca is going to start Nkunku and play the majority of the minutes and then suddenly take him out of the team at a drop of a hat. I just don't see that happening. So I think Nkunku, with the situation going on with Man City, with Rodri being out, some big players, this suddenly becomes not a good fixture. Let's be real. It's Man City. But is there a world where he scores? I think there is. Wolves away. I mean, it could be anything. Palace at home. If they get rid of Mark Gahey, if they lose him, suddenly becomes an okay fixture. And then we reassess over this period. Then we need to reassess. But I'm getting more bullish on Nkunku. But again, this is where we have got into a situation where I've thought to myself, there's no world that I'm not getting rid of Nkunku. So if we were to a situation where I say to myself, you know what, Nkunku needs to leave this team, how could this team change? Well, one thing that I could do is get rid of Nkunku and go to Gibbs White. Not as flashy, but way more guarantee for minutes and probably consistent returns. But it's just the possibility of Nkunku hitting the ground running, which I really do think is the issue. People are putting in Bruno because I think he's a great option. It's just long term, is he a good option? I think the answer is tough to come to the conclusion there because his position could change with the return of certain players, and it's just really difficult to know. I'm just checking to see what's going on here. Okay. Eze and Wood or Murphy and Solanke. I'm currently leaning towards... Well, I've got Solanke in my team, so I've got to say Solanke and Murphy, but I do think Eze and Wood is a good shout. The thing about Eze and Wood is Awoni is getting match fit, so could we see him steal some minutes from Wood? I think the possibility is there. Immortal Trinity, thanks so much for moderating the chat, mate. I really do appreciate it. Saka or Palmer? I prefer Palmer. Hey, go for it. If that's your gut instinct, please go for it. Don't have other people tell you otherwise. I think you need to stick with your guns on that one. Am I getting a mad? No, I think I have gone off the idea of a mad just because if I need that player long term, then I'm a little bit concerned about his minutes with Garnacho, for example. So right now, this is where we're landing. The only variation that I could see myself doing is this. Just forgetting about Trent, going to Porro, freeing up 1.5 million to then upgrade Smith Rowe to Eze. So this is kind of the last big decision. Gay D, what have you asked, my friend? What about Havertz? Bailey or Rodgers? Rodgers for me. I think Bailey longer term could be a problem for minutes when the Champions League comes around. And I do think Havertz is fantastic. It's just squeezing him in that team. If you're going without Haaland, then it becomes very easy. Here's a good poll, and I think this is more of a realistic consideration for managers here. Which do you prefer? So this is going to be a big one here because I think this is really going to dictate what direction my team goes for. So Trent plus, and before you vote on this, guys, do have a real good thought about this because I think this is a decision that a lot of people are having right now. Porro plus Eze, or the final option is, so basically you can do that, or what you could do, you can either have Trent and Smith Rowe, Porro and Eze, or you could have, God, what's the other option I was thinking? What's the other option? Oh, hang on. Plus Solanke. Oh, this is tasty. Solanke. Guys, wait for this poll. This is going to be sensational. And really do give this some thought. I need to get my calculator out to see if this actually works. Hang on a second. Let's get my calculator out. So 7 plus 5.5 plus 7.5, 20. 5.5 plus 7 plus 7.5, 20. 7 plus 7 plus 6, 20. As if I've just done that on live and literally done 7 plus 7 plus 6 and use a calculator. I do apologise. Jesus, I'm not dumb. I do know maths. Okay, so this is the big one. If you've just tuned in, this poll that I'm about to put in, I think completely determines how my team's going to look before we end this stream because I'm not going till the deadline. I do apologise, everyone. Check that poll. This is big. I don't want to see anyone voting it in the first 30 seconds. I need your full attention right now on this. Which combination do you like? This is massive. This is really big. They're all 20 million and they all can actually happen for my team. While you guys are voting in that, I can see there's over 500 of you. First and foremost, if you haven't liked the stream, you're a lunatic. Now, I'm joking. But if you are enjoying it, please do drop a like. It just helps others get engaged if they need to. Secondly, if you're not subscribed and you want to stick around for the next few weeks, be awesome to have you as a subscriber, but no pressure if not. Thirdly, get on that poll. I'm super interested to know which one you prefer. If you're voting, also, if you feel really, really in that gut, you're feeling to yourself, I want to talk about that, get it in the chat and let me know how positive you are about one of these. Like if you are like, Nacho, you are dumb, option 1 is the best, just write it. Put out your fury in the chat. So 50% currently saying Trent, Smith Rowe and Solanke. 32% are saying Porro, Eze and Solanke. And 17% are going for Trent, Eze and Wood. Gabriel or Saliba NBM champs are saying, I prefer Gabriel, but I get why people are going Saliba if they have slight concerns about Gabriel. The reason why people have concerns about Gabriel is just because of Calaflori, the chance of him potentially stealing minutes. NBL champs, please don't sound the chat. I've just answered it. Thank you. Trent is a must. Guys, you are feeling this one. 53% are saying option 1, which is Trent, Smith Rowe, Solanke. Guys, let me know in that poll. It is massive right now. Based on what you are saying, this is the combination that we should land on for my team. Trent, Smith Rowe, Solanke. I'm feeling okay about this team. The more I've thought about it, I don't have Porro, which is not nice, but I have Trent. And I prefer Trent to Porro every day of the week. Oh, man. By the way, has anyone seen that kid on TikTok where he's like, there we land, the Fabrizio impersonator? It is incredible. I might come up with my own. I'll try and incorporate one in the next stream. Oh, final thing I need to do with this team. Who the bloody hell's my 4.5? It's Konsa or Aina, really. I am leaning towards Aina as we speak, to be honest with you. This is as close to my locked-in team as we can get, really. I'm going to be honest. Will Rogers start? Yes, I do think he will start. I'd be very surprised. Mr. T, hey Nacho, just realised you've got an FPL channel, lol. Thank you for tuning in, my friend. I choose Murphy as a Smith Rowe alternative. I do agree, but Murphy short term for 1 game week is fantastic. Longer term, I'll be a little bit concerned. Why not Hall? I think Hall is a brilliant option. My main concern with Hall is Palace are really, really struggling to keep, what's it called? I think they're going to struggle to keep Mark Gay before this deadline. And then it just throws up a little bit of concern about Lewis Hall. But I do think he's a phenomenal option for the first game week. And to be honest with you, when we look at my team, I definitely could have him in. If we look at the planner here, and we reset it there, we could easily do that to Lewis Hall. Lock it in. Hall again, but I personally would be inclined to play Robinson. But Hall could easily come in for Gabriel if I was concerned. Smith Rowe would come in for Rodgers at home against Leicester, and the team would look something like this. Coming into game week 3, Hall at home against Spurs, not ideal. Game week 4 away against Wolves, he could come in. It's a very close one between Aina and Hall. Aina, though, the problem with him, he doesn't really offer anything going forward. So I am leaning towards Hall as a potential option. Quansah, I just don't love it. Just don't love Quansah. And I can see a lot of people are leaning towards the combination of Trent, Smith Rowe and Solanke, and I am leaning towards it myself. I think Solanke is just going to be so important in the Spurs team for what Andrew wants to do. It clearly was a player that he wanted in that team, and if a manager is the one forcing the transfer, then I get very confident about that decision. Just seeing what's being said in here. What is popping off in here, guys? What is popping off? Right, guys. We are going to have to wrap this up in a minute. I do apologise, but I'm going to have to jump on TikTok to answer some questions for the last hour because I have got a commitment on there to do that. But I need to say the biggest thank you. Any reason for no Barco just can't afford him? No, I can afford him. He could definitely come in. And to be honest with you, Barco could definitely come in for me. And we just play off the fact that he comes in. I mean, it probably does make more sense because Johnson's never going to play. It probably does make sense for me just to have Barco in case he does hit the ground running. He is clearly the option to go to. So the only problem with it, 25% owned. If suddenly they sign someone and everybody sells Barco, then we have some issues. So look, I'm not really committed to anybody. I think Barco is a great option. So Barco could easily come into this team. But I think the team is looking pretty set. Rodgers in for that opening game. Is it good? No. Is it great? I don't think it's the worst. Who am I missing? I haven't got any Man United, but it is what it is. I've got Arsenal coverage. We got Newcastle coverage. We got a little bit of Forest coverage with no Solanke at Bournemouth. Nothing in this fixture, but I think that is a very difficult fixture to consider. Not much in this one, but again, I don't love Eze away against Brentford. Chelsea at home against Man City. We got a little bit of Nkunku, a little bit of Haaland. And then we got the big dog, Solanke against against Leicester. So, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you here. Thanks so much for tuning in. I will post my official team on the community section of the YouTube page. So if you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe to the channel, as I will post it there basically with locked in, and I'll just give you an update. But this is as close to locked in as I've been for the last few weeks. I feel pretty content with this team. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching it back, make sure you do subscribe. If you're watching this right now, make sure you do drop a like on the stream and of course subscribe. Thank you so much, guys. I will see you in Sunday's video where I'll be doing a bit of a reaction and an update on my team. Have an amazing one, guys. If you have any questions, jump on TikTok right now and I'll be answering them. Take care. Have an amazing day. Keep an eye out for that community post.